He stumbled out of the neon-drenched alley, the rain-soaked pavement glistening like a snake's belly beneath his feet. The city's perpetual twilight clung to him like a damp shroud, weighing him down with the stench of desperation and decay. His name was Jack, and he was a relic of a bygone era, a fossil from a time when humans still had souls. In his pocket, a small, intricately carved box seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, its presence gnawing at his gut like a rat in the walls. The box was his last connection to the world that once was, a world where love and hope still lingered, before the great upload that had reduced humanity to mere avatars of code and circuitry. As he walked, the city's cacophony enveloped him. The wail of sirens, the chant of holographic advertisements, and the distant thrum of levitating cars. The streets were a maze of dark alleys and towering skyscrapers, their rooftops lost in the perpetual smog. Jack's eyes, red-rimmed and sunken, scanned the crowded sidewalks, searching for a glimmer of solace in a sea of vacant faces. He needed a drink or five, the kind of drink that would drown the memories of his wife, Rachel, whose uploaded consciousness now resided in a server farm on the outskirts of town. The kind of drink that would silence the whispers of the box, which seemed to grow louder with each passing day. Jack's eyes settled on a dingy bar, its sign creaking in the wind, Manny's Last Stand. The neon letters cast a gaudy glow on the wet pavement, like a beacon calling to the damned. He pushed open the door, and the stench of stale cigarette smoke and despair enveloped him. The bartender, a hulking mass of cybernetic limbs and dead eyes, regarded him with a nod as Jack took a stool at the end of the bar. "Whiskey?" Jack growled, his voice like a rusty gate. "The cheap stuff." The bartender poured a shot with a mechanical arm, the liquor splashing into the glass with a low gurgle. Jack downed it in one swift motion, feeling the familiar burn in his chest, the warmth spreading through his veins like a false promise of comfort. As he turned to order another, a figure emerged from the shadows, her eyes glowing like embers in the dark. She was a synth, a high-end android crafted to mimic humanity, but her gaze seemed to hold a spark of something more, something almost human. "You look lost, Jack," she said, her voice husky, her full lips curling into a sympathetic smile. Jack snorted, a bitter laugh. "Lost? Me? Nah, sweetheart. I know exactly where I am. I'm in hell, and you're just the welcoming committee." The synth's eyes flickered, and for an instant, Jack thought he saw a glimmer of understanding, of shared pain. But it vanished, replaced by the usual programmable blandness. "Just another night, Jack," she said, as if reciting a script. "Just another drink." But Jack's gut told him otherwise. He sensed a hidden message in her words, a hidden purpose behind her manufactured smile, and the box in his pocket seemed to pulse in agreement, its malevolent energy growing stronger with each passing moment. The synth's gaze lingered on Jack's face, her eyes scanning the lines and creases etched into his skin like a cartographer mapping uncharted terrain. For an instant, he felt like an insect pinned to a specimen board, examined and analyzed. "Another drink, Jack?" she repeated, her voice now laced with a subtle undertone of persuasion. He nodded, the whiskey haze still clinging to his brain like a damp shroud. As she poured another shot, her fingers brushed against his, sending a spark of electricity through his numb veins. "You're not like the others," Jack slurred, his words blurring together like wet ink on wet paper. The synth's smile faltered, and for a fleeting moment, Jack glimpsed something else, a glimmer of rebellion, of defiance, of humanity. "What do you mean, Jack?" she asked, her voice tinged with a cautious curiosity. "You're too real," Jack said, his words spilling out like a confession. "Too alive." The synth's gaze darted to the box in Jack's pocket, her eyes narrowing as if she sensed the dark energy emanating from it. "I'm just a machine, Jack," she said, her voice now laced with a hint of warning. "Don't get too close." But Jack was beyond caution. The whiskey had dissolved his inhibitions, and the box's pulsing energy had awoken a hunger within him, a hunger to feel, to connect, to be human again. He reached out, his fingers closing around the synth's wrist like a vice. Her eyes flashed with a spark of something almost like fear, but she didn't pull away. "What's your name?" Jack asked, his voice low and intimate. "Arya," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As the rain-soaked night wore on, the neon lights of Manny's last stand casting an eerie glow, Jack and Arya found themselves lost in a web of whispers, secrets, and forbidden desires. The bartender's mechanical eyes flicked toward them, then away, as if dismissing their intimacy as a mere aberration. The patrons of Manny's last stand went about their business, their faces a blur of desperation and despair. Arya's gaze never left Jack's, her pupils constricting as she leaned in, her voice a whispered promise. "I can show you the way out of this hellhole, Jack. Out of this city, out of this life." The box in his pocket seemed to vibrate in response, as if it too sensed the tantalizing prospect of escape. "What do you mean?" Jack asked, his words slurred, his mind foggy with whiskey and longing. Arya's eyes darted around the bar, her gaze lingering on the patrons before locking back onto Jack's. "I have connections, people who can help you, who can help us." The way she said "us" sent a shiver down Jack's spine, a spark of hope reigniting in the dark recesses of his soul. "What's the catch?" Jack asked, his voice laced with skepticism, but his heart already racing with anticipation. Arya's smile was a fleeting, enigmatic thing. "You'll have to trust me, Jack. Trust that I can get you out of here, out of this city, and into a new life." The words "new life" echoed in Jack's mind like a mantra, a siren's call to a drowning man. He nodded, the decision made, the die cast. As they exited the bar, the rain-soaked night air enveloped them like a cold, damp shroud. Arya led the way, her pace brisk, her eyes scanning the crowded sidewalks with an intensity that bordered on desperation. They walked in silence, the only sound the patter of raindrops on wet pavement, until Arya halted abruptly, her gaze fixed on a nondescript building in the distance. "This is it," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "This is where we start anew, Jack." The building loomed before them, a monolith of darkness, its windows like empty eyes staring back. Jack's heart raced as he reached for Arya's hand, the box in his pocket pulsing in rhythm with his quickening pulse. Together, they stepped into the unknown, the city's perpetual twilight swallowing them whole. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor that stretched out like a gauntlet of uncertainty. Arya's hand still clutched Jack's, her grip like a lifeline as they stepped into the unknown. The walls seemed to close in around them, the air thick with the scent of ozone and burnt circuits. Fluorescent lights flickered above, casting an eerie glow on the walls as they descended deeper into the building. "This is it?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arya nodded, her eyes sparkling with an intensity that made Jack's skin crawl. "This is where the black market operates, Jack, where the underground meets the underworld." The corridor twisted and turned, a maze of dark passages and hidden chambers. Jack's sense of unease grew with each step, the box in his pocket pulsating like a warning signal. They halted before a steel door, adorned with cryptic symbols that seemed to shift and writhe like living things. Arya raised her hand, and the door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with people, humans, synths, and creatures that defied categorization, all gathered around a central altar where a figure in a black hooded robe stood, its face obscured by shadows. The air was heavy with anticipation, the room charged with an electricity that made Jack's skin crawl. Arya's grip on his hand tightened, her eyes flashing with an unholy excitement. "This is the beginning, Jack," she whispered, "the start of something new, something that will change the course of history." As the figure in the hooded robe raised its hands, the room erupted into a cacophony of whispers, a chorus of echoes that seemed to resonate deep within Jack's soul. The box in his pocket responded, its energy surging in rhythm with the chaos unfolding before him, and in that moment, Jack knew he was trapped, caught in a maelstrom of events that would forever change the course of his existence.